Earl Braddock had been in the cab of his John Deere S680 combine since 5:48 that Wednesday morning in mid-October 2025, wearing his dark tan Carhartt chore coat with the buffalo check flannel collar buttoned tight against the cold dawn, his olive green John Deere mesh cap pulled low, and the radio tuned to the Champaign Urbana Ag Market Report. The forecast had been clear for the day, partly cloudy, high of 62 degrees, calm 6-mile-an-hour wind out of the southwest. Rain was forecast to arrive by Friday afternoon. Earl had 220 acres of corn left to cut on the north, 360 and 4 full days of dry weather to get it done. The rotor drive belt tensioner on Earl Braddock's 2023 John Deere S680 combine cracked at 2:14 on that Wednesday afternoon in the middle of harvesting the north 360 acres of corn. The combine had 940 hours on the original block and was 18 months into its 3-year factory warranty. Earl was running the corn header at 4.6 miles an hour, feeding 36 bushel rows into the rotor at a steady 1,840 revolutions per minute, when the tensioner gave way and the rotor drive belt sang off the pulley with a sound like a piano wire snapping in a tin shed. Earl pulled the olive green John Deere mesh cap a little lower over his steel blue eyes, killed the diesel, climbed down off the platform, and ducked under the side panel to look at the damage. The flat aluminum bracket that held the spring-loaded tensioner pulley had cracked clean through at the bolt mount lug, a fatigue fracture running diagonal across the casting from one bolt hole to the next. The bracket was lying on the concrete floor of the rotor housing with the broken edge bright and silver, where the aluminum had given. Earl pulled out his cell phone and called Champaign John Deere at 2:21. Champaign John Deere Service Department, this is Blake. Blake, this is Earl Braddock out of Gibson City. I have an S680 down at the headland with a cracked rotor drive tensioner bracket, serial number ending in 4847. Warranties still active through April 2027. Mr. Braddock, hold while I pull up your account. Blake Whittaker tapped his Lenovo ThinkPad tablet for about 42 seconds. Mr. Braddock, I see your S680 in the system. 18 months remaining on the Platinum Service contract. I can dispatch a mobile technician to your location. Service call fee is $375 minimum, plus $148 per labor hour after the first 2 hours. Travel charge from Champaign is $2.40 a mile each way, which puts you at about $96 round trip. Blake, that's almost $600 just to walk up to the machine. Yes, sir. That's the standard call rate. And if the part is covered under warranty. If the part is covered under warranty, the labor charge is waived. The service call fee and travel are not waived under any disposition code. If you like these stories, take a second and hit that subscribe button below. It helps a small channel like this one keep telling the kind of stories nobody else will. Hit the bell too. Now back to it. The Champaign John Deere mobile service truck pulled into Earl's headland at 5:47 that afternoon. Blake Whittaker climbed out in his crisp navy John Deere polo, khaki-pleated chinos, and brown leather Cole Haan loafers caked in fresh field mud. He had a Lenovo ThinkPad tablet under his arm and an OEM parts catalog binder in his soft pink hand. Mr. Braddock, Blake said. Blake Whittaker, service writer. Earl Braddock, the cracked bracket is in the rotor housing. I left it on the floor." Blake climbed up onto the platform of the S680 in his loafers and bent down under the side panel for about 14 minutes with the tablet and a small flashlight. He took 8 photographs. He measured the broken edge of the bracket. He looked up the part number in the OEM catalog binder, tapped on his tablet, and climbed down at 603. "Mr. Braddock," Blake said, "the cracked component is a JD part number AH-247218, the rotor drive belt tensioner bracket. OEM replacement runs $4,840 for the part alone, plus shipping and 4.6 hours of labor at $148 an hour. For $681 in labor. Total parts and labor with shipping comes to about $5,684. And the warranty? Warranty disposition on this component is code 14-W, which is wear-related fatigue failure. Wear-related fatigue is excluded from the powertrain warranty under Section 8.4 of your service contract. "Blake," Earl said quietly, "I have 940 hours on this combine. I have read your TSB-S680-2023-14 on this specific bracket. The TSB acknowledges that this casting has a known design flaw on machines manufactured between June 2022 and February 2024. My S680 was manufactured in August 2023. It is on the TSB list." Blake Whittaker tapped his tablet for another 28 seconds. "Mr. Braddock, you are correct that your serial number is on TSB-S680-2023-14. However, TSB-listed failures are still subject to warranty disposition. Code 14-W applies. Warranty is denied." "You're telling me a part with a known factory design flaw is not covered by the factory warranty?" "That is correct, Mr. Braddock." "Blake, you understand it's October. It's the middle of harvest. I have 220 acres of corn left to cut, and the forecast calls for rain Friday and Saturday." "Mr. Braddock, I empathize with the timing. The OEM part is in stock in Davenport. Expedited overnight shipping is $148 additional, which means we can have the bracket here by Friday morning. With the 4.6 hours of labor, we can have you cutting again by Friday afternoon. That's $5,832 plus the $375 you charge me to walk up to the machine, almost $6,200 total." "That is correct, Mr. Braddock." "Blake, I am 58 years old. I have farmed this ground for 36 years. I have never paid almost $6,200 for an aluminum bracket the size of a salad plate. Mr. Braddock, would you like me to schedule the repair?" "Blake," Earl said, "can you wait 4 hours?" "For what, Mr. Braddock?" "For my decision. Mr. Braddock, the part is in Davenport. If I don't authorize the expedited shipping by 7 o'clock tonight, it doesn't ship until Friday morning, which means you don't run the combine until Monday." "Monday," Earl repeated. "Monday afternoon at the earliest." "Blake, what's your warranty manager's name?" "Sandra Pelton." "Is Sandra available?" "Sandra works 8 to 5. Mr. Braddock, she's gone home." "You don't have her cell number?" "I have her cell. She does not answer it after 5 unless it's an internal emergency." A $5,832 wear-related fatigue failure on a combine in mid-harvest is not an emergency? To Sandra, Mr. Braddock, and I am quoting her training materials, It is a standard customer service interaction within normal business hours. Blake. Yes, Mr. Braddock. You go back to Sandra in the morning. You tell Sandra that Earl Braddock from Gibson City declined the $5,832 OEM repair on the rotor drive belt tensioner bracket and the $375 service call fee, and that Earl Braddock will be in touch when he is in touch. Yes, Mr. Braddock. Goodbye, Blake. No, Earl said again, mostly to himself this time. I'll be in touch. Blake Whittaker drove out of Earl's headland at 6:28 in his clean white Silverado with the Champaign J.D. magnet on the door. Earl stood on the concrete floor of the machine shed for about 4 seconds, holding the cracked bracket in his calloused, thick-knuckled hand. Then he pulled out his cell phone and called Virgil Kemp. "Virgil," Earl said, "I have a cracked rotor drive belt tensioner bracket off the S680. J.D. wants $5,684 plus a $375 service call. They're denying the warranty under a 14W disposition code." 14W, Virgil repeated. Wear-related fatigue. They use that one when the design is the problem and they don't want to admit it. That's the one. "Earl, who came out to you?" "Blake Whittaker," Earl told him. "Blake who?" "Whittaker. Service writer, joined Champaign in March of 2024. "Earl, I don't know Whittaker. The old service manager at Champaign was Tom Sikora. He'd have written this one off as a TSB defect and shipped the part free with one phone call. Tom retired in 2023. "Tom retired?" Earl asked. 38 years at Champaign John Deere. Took early retirement when the new district manager started pushing service fee revenue targets. That explains a lot, Virgil. It explains everything. "Earl, Blake Whittaker is pushing revenue. Tom Sikora used to push parts that worked." "Different world." "Different world," Virgil agreed. "But the bracket is still just an 8-inch flat aluminum casting with 3 bolt holes and a tensioner pulley axis. It's nothing fancy. Any decent fab shop could mill you a replacement from 6061-T6 aluminum stock in 6 hours. Who do I call, Virgil?" "Ken Brockway. Lives 7 miles east of Gibson City on Route 9. Retired Caterpillar engineer. Built his own fab shop. Has a Bridgeport mill, a TIG welder, and a CNC plasma cutter. He'll mill you a bracket better than J.D.'s factory casting. You know Ken Brockway?" "I've known Ken since 1987. We were both at Caterpillar in Peoria back when I worked the field service truck before I opened my own shop. Tell him I sent you, Earl." "Thanks, Virgil." "And Earl, don't tell Ken what the J.D. shop quoted. He'll be insulted on your behalf for a week." Earl drove the half-mile to the home machine shed, took the cracked aluminum bracket off the concrete floor, set it carefully on a clean shop towel on the passenger seat of the silver Silverado, and drove 7 miles east on Route 9 to Ken Brockway's place at 6:54. Quick interruption. If you've ever watched a corporate service writer in brown loafers stand on the platform of your combine and quote you $5,684 for a part the size of a salad plate, hit that bell icon. We post 2 of these a week. Now back to it. The Brockway place was a tidy 280-acre farm with a 1962 white clapboard farmhouse, a big red gambrel roof barn behind it, and a 40-by-60 metal-roofed fab shop just east of the barn with a single bay door open. Yellow work lights spilled out of the bay onto the gravel apron in the fall and dusk. Earl pulled in at 7:01. Ken Brockway was at his Bridgeport mill running a piece of cold-rolled steel through a fly cutter when Earl walked into the shop. He was 64, trim build going wiry, faded green J.D. cap with a paint smudge on the brim, navy Dickies work shirt with rolled-up sleeves showing forearm tattoos from his Navy days, calloused, thick-knuckled hands with one finger that didn't fully straighten. He shut the mill off when he saw Earl. "Earl Braddock?" Ken asked. "That's me," Earl answered. "Virgil Kemp sent me." "Virgil mentioned you to me at the diner about a month ago," Ken told him. "Said you were a man worth knowing. What can I do for you?" Earl held out the cracked aluminum bracket. Ken took it in his thick-knuckled hands, turned it over twice, ran his thumb along the broken edge. "Rotor drive belt tensioner," Ken said. "J.D. S680. Cast aluminum, looks like A380 or maybe 356. Fatigue fracture from a stress concentration at the bolt mount lug. Earl, this bracket cracked because the radius at the lug is too tight for the load." "Ken, J.D. wants $5,684 plus a $375 service call to replace it under denied warranty." Ken Brockway looked at the bracket. Then he looked at Earl. Then he set the bracket down on his Bridgeport mill table. $5,684, Ken repeated. "For a bracket I could mill from 6061-T 6-plate stock in 6 hours." That's what Virgil said. "Earl, what's the cost of your stock 6061-T6 in 1-inch plate?" "About $14.20 a pound at the Champaign Metal Supply. This bracket is probably 6.6 pounds finished. Material cost runs $94. I'll mill it tonight. Deliver it to you in the morning. Total cost to you is the $94 in material. The shop time is free, as a favor to a neighbor and as a courtesy to Virgil Kemp, who taught me half of what I know about field repair." "Ken, I can't let you—" "You can and you will, Earl Braddock. I have been retired 11 years. I work this shop because I love it, not because I bill for it. A piece of work like this is exactly what the Bridgeport was meant to do." "Ken, $94 for the material," Ken said. "Final answer." $94 for the material, Earl agreed. "Earl, when do you need it back?" Ken asked. "Tomorrow morning at the latest," Earl answered. "You'll have it by 7. "That's a hard deadline for an overnight, Ken." "Hard deadline is what the Bridgeport was built for, Earl." "I appreciate that. I'll see you at 7. "At 7, Ken?" Ken Brockway started cutting at 7:34. He measured the cracked bracket with his Mitutoyo dial calipers down to 0.001-inch tolerance. He drew the part on his computer in Fusion 360 in 38 minutes, increasing the bolt lug radius from J.D.'s 0.04-inch fillet to 0.18-inch, a fillet wide enough to spread the stress. He set up his Bridgeport at 821, locked the 6061-T6 plate stock in the vise, and started milling the rough outline at 828. By midnight, he had the part rough machined. By 2:30 in the morning, he had the bolt holes drilled and tapped. By 4:12, he had the finish pass complete and the part deburred with a fine file. Ken pulled into Earl's headland at 6:51 Thursday morning with the new bracket wrapped in a clean shop towel and resting on the bench seat of his faded blue 2009 Ford F250. Earl was there waiting. Virgil Kemp was there too with his toolbox. "Ken," Earl said, "did you sleep at all?" "I slept from 4:30 to 6, Ken answered. "An hour and a half. Plenty for a man my age." Virgil and Ken installed the new bracket on the S680 in 1 hour, 14 minutes. The bracket fit J.D.'s original mounting holes within 0.002-inch tolerance. Virgil tensioned the rotor drive belt to the factory spec of 142 foot-pounds, started the diesel, ran the rotor up to 1,840 revolutions per minute, and held it at full operating load for 4 minutes. The new bracket held without flexing. Virgil checked the belt deflection. He checked the bracket temperature with an infrared gun. Everything ran clean. "Ken Brockway," Virgil said, "you built J.D. a better bracket than they build themselves." "I built it with the right radius at the lug, Virgil," Ken answered. "J.D.'s engineer who specified that 0.04-inch fillet should be ashamed of himself." "How did they ever ship that part?" Virgil asked. "Same way every manufacturer ships a marginal design," Ken told him. "Cost engineering. The 0.04-inch fillet saves about 0.7 grams of aluminum per bracket. Across 24,000 units shipped, that's 16.8 kilograms of metal. About $42 in raw material savings on the whole production run." $42, Virgil repeated. $42 in savings on the design line item, Ken confirmed, and about $5,200 in warranty costs per failure when the bracket cracks at 940 hours. J.D. doesn't add up the math because the warranty department is a different cost center than the engineering department. "Lord," Virgil said. "Lord," Ken answered. "How many of these brackets do you think have failed?" Earl asked. "Across the production run, I'd guess 1,400 to 2,200 failures by now," Ken told him, "at $5,200 a warranty event. That's $7 million to $11 million in warranty cost," Ken replied, "against $42 in design savings." "Lord," Earl said. "Lord," Virgil answered. Nathan walked up at this point with a thermos of fresh coffee. "Dad, Mom sent coffee. Said you'd been out here since 6:12. "Thank you, son," Earl told him. "Bracket holding?" Nathan asked. "Bracket's holding." "Mr. Brockway, my dad owes you more than the $94 in material." "Your dad owes me $94, son," Ken said, "and not a penny more." Earl handed Ken a check for $94 at 8:26 in the morning. Ken folded it and put it in the breast pocket of his Dickies work shirt without looking at it. "Ken," Earl said, "I owe you more than $94. "You owe me $94 for the material, Earl Braddock. The rest is what neighbors do." "Ken, $94 for the material. Final answer?" Earl finished cutting the North 360 by a Friday evening at 6:57, an hour before the rain started. He cut 220 acres at a recorded yield of 232 bushels per acre, 51,040 bushels of corn from the North 360. At the November contract price of $4.84 per bushel locked in July, the gross was $246,432. The S680 ran perfectly the entire 22 remaining hours of harvest. The new Brockway bracket did not flex, crack, or warm above 88 degrees Fahrenheit at full load. Blake Whittaker from Champaign John Deere called Earl on Saturday afternoon at 3:14. "Mr. Braddock," Blake said, "I'm calling to follow up on the rotor drive belt tensioner bracket repair. Did you want to schedule the OEM bracket install? We can have the part here by Monday and the work done by Tuesday afternoon." "Blake," Earl said. "I appreciate the call. The S680 is back running. The bracket is replaced. I finished cutting the north 360 last night." "Mr. Braddock, you replaced it yourself?" Blake asked. "A neighbor of mine milled a new one from 6061-T6 plate," Earl told him. "Mr. Braddock, you understand that installing a non-OEM part may void the remaining warranty on the rotor drive system." "Blake, J.D. already denied the warranty under disposition code 14-W. Code 14-W applies to the bracket itself. Other rotor drive components remain under warranty unless modified. The bracket is a structural mount. Blake, it is not in the rotor drive power path. J.D.'s own service manual, page 247, says the bracket can be replaced with any structurally equivalent part without affecting the rotor warranty." "Mr. Braddock, are you reading the service manual?" "I am. Section 4.7, page 247, paragraph 3. I'll have to consult with my warranty manager and get back to you." "You do that, Blake?" Dale Voss called Earl at 5:40 that evening. Word travels in Gibson City. "Earl, I heard you put a non-OEM bracket in your S680. That'll void your warranty." "It won't, Dale. J.D.'s service manual, page 247, says any structurally equivalent replacement is permitted without affecting rotor warranty coverage. Blake Whittaker is calling me Monday to confirm." "Earl, you read the manual?" "I read the manual, Dale," Earl answered. "Lord." "Goodbye, Dale," Earl said, and hung up. Blake Whittaker called Earl back at 10:20 Monday morning. "Mr. Braddock, my warranty manager confirmed that under Section 4.7, the bracket replacement does not affect rotor drive warranty coverage. I apologize for the misstatement." "Thank you, Blake." "Mr. Braddock, may I ask who milled your replacement part?" "A retired Caterpillar engineer named Ken Brockway," Earl told him. "Has a fab shop on his farm 7 miles east of Gibson City." "Mr. Braddock," Blake said, "would Mr. Brockway be interested in a small contract supply arrangement? Our warranty department has been getting an increasing number of TSB-S680-2023-14 bracket failure reports. A locally milled replacement at the proper radius would solve a lot of customer problems." "Blake, you'd have to ask Ken Brockway," Earl replied. "I don't speak for him." "May I have his phone number?" Blake asked. "You may," Earl answered. Ken Brockway started milling brackets for Champaign John Deere in December 2025 at $284 each. He shipped 86 brackets to J.D. customers between December 2025 and June 2026 before J.D. redesigned the casting with the proper 0.18-inch lug radius. Ken donated $14,400 of the revenue to the Gibson City Volunteer Fire Department. The rest he put in his grandkids' college fund. Earl drove home from the bracket install at 9:08 Thursday morning with the J.D. service manual, page 247, dog-eared in his Carhartt pocket, and the original cracked bracket wrapped in a clean shop towel on the passenger seat. He pulled into the drive at 9:12. Ruth was on the back porch with a thermos. "How'd it go?" Ruth asked. "Bracket installed in 1 hour, 14 minutes. Combine ran clean for 4 minutes at 1,840 revolutions per minute. Belt tension reads 142 foot-pounds. Bracket temperature stayed below 88 degrees at full load." "How much did Ken Brockway charge you?" $94 for the material. He refused payment for the labor." $94? Ruth said. $94, Ruth, Earl told her. Earl, that bracket would have cost us $5,832 from Champaign John Deere. That's right. Earl Braddock, that man saved this farm $5,738 in 6 hours of his time. He did, Ruth. What can we give him in return? Earl set the thermos down. Ruth, I have been thinking on that. Ken's son David lives in Indianapolis, has 2 boys, Ken's grandsons, 7 and 9 years old. Ken mentioned at the shop last night that he's been wanting to take them to the John Deere Pavilion in Moline for the boys' birthday weekend in December, but he can't justify the $480 for the hotel. You want to send them? I want to send them. How much, Earl? $680 for the Stony Creek Hotel for 2 nights, $148 for gas, $94 for the museum tickets, $200 for meals, round number $1,200. Earl, that's exactly what we should do. Anonymous gift, Ruth, through Pastor Dan. Ken doesn't accept charity, but he can't refuse a gift from the church. Done, Earl. Earl drove the half-mile down Route 250N to Pastor Dan Oakley's office behind Cornerstone Bible Church at 1040 that same morning. Pastor Dan met him at the side door of the sanctuary. Earl Braddock, Pastor Dan said. What can I do for you this morning? Pastor, I need to send a gift to a neighbor. Ken Brockway? How did you know, Pastor? Virgil Kemp called me at 7:20 this morning. Said you'd be coming by today. Said the story was going to walk through my door before lunch. Virgil, Earl said, half smiling. Virgil, Pastor Dan answered. What kind of gift, Earl? $1,200 for Ken to take his son David and his 2 grandsons, 7 and 9 years old, to the John Deere Pavilion in Moline for the December birthday weekend, hotel, gas, museum tickets, meals, anonymous from the church discretionary fund. I'll write you a check today and a matching gift to the fund. Earl Braddock, that is the kind of gift the discretionary fund was built for. Pastor, will Ken accept it? He will if it comes from the church, Earl. He won't if it comes from you. Then it comes from the church. Done. Pastor, one more thing. Yes, Earl. Don't tell Ken who paid for it. I won't, Earl. The discretionary fund handles 14 to 18 anonymous gifts a year. Nobody asks. Thank you, Pastor. Earl, thank Ken Brockway. The man saved your farm $5,738 in 6 hours. That's the gift. The trip is just the bow on it. Yes, Pastor. Some men build a fab shop on their farm because they love the work. Some men deny a warranty because the disposition code says they can. And once in a while, a 64-year-old retired Caterpillar engineer with a Bridgeport mill from 1978 fixes a $4,840 corporate problem at 4:12 in the morning for $94 in material because the radius at the lug was wrong and somebody had to make it right.